Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here in this heat and for taking the time to talk a bit more about a very, very special documentary film. And we're very happy that we have today here with us on stage the makers, like the creators of the film, and two of its main protagonists as well. So first of all, welcome here on stage Markus Vetter and Michele Gentile, the co-directors of this movie. And as I said, we're really very, very happy to have here two of the main protagonists of the movie. We have Joanna Privet. She is a barrister in The Hague and a specialist in international criminal law. And Luis Moreno Ocampo, first chief prosecutor of the ICC. Welcome. So take a seat, grab something to drink if you want. So first of all, before we start talking amongst ourselves here on stage, I would be really interested to know a bit more about our audience. Especially, I would like to know who of you had the chance to attend the premiere this afternoon. So who has seen the movie? Wow, that's a lot of people. Great, but not everyone, I think. So to get things going, and as not all of you have seen the movie, I have to say, when I first heard about it, you know, the title is War and Justice, it's up here, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, it's 2023, the movie is called War and Justice, so obviously this is about the war in Ukraine. And I was really surprised to find out, yes, but also mostly no. So Markus, explain to us a bit more. What's the movie about? What is it about, the documentary?
No, the movie is about the International Criminal Court, and the International Criminal Court was inaugurated, so it was voted in 98, but it was inaugurated in 2003. We had the chance to shoot since 2010 around, because back then I made a film, Heart of Jenin, and Luis Moreno Ocampo, he was already the first chief prosecutor for, I think, 6 years or something like that. And he was in Berlin, and Heart of Jenin was about Palestine. He saw the film and he came to me and he asked me if I would be interested in doing certain film clips from Palestine, because he knew that I'm there, working there as a filmmaker. And I told him that I'm not that kind of filmmaker, but I could imagine doing a feature-length film about the International Criminal Court. Of course, back then, I remember when we went there the first time, because I agreed, I thought it's a fantastic idea to make a movie about a global court. And I was doing my first research, and I was trying to find the way to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, and the taxi driver, he didn't know about the institution. So we had to look it up, because he was being confused about also a tribunal, the Yugoslavia tribunal. So he didn't know that there was really an international criminal court, and he was from The Hague, a taxi driver. So that told us as well how difficult it is to inaugurate, to make an institution like such a global court, that people are aware of its pure mere existence. So we started doing a first film back then. It was called The Court. But I think people were not ready yet, because it's so complex, and it's another institution, and there's all these questions. Is that institution powerful? Can it do something, or will they only prosecute African states because the big states didn't ratify this institution? So we were doing that film. It was a great film, The Court, but we could also see not so many people were interested. But that changed with the Ukrainian war, out of two reasons, because it's not so back then we had crimes against humanity, genocide, and war crimes, but there was another crime coming on the table, which is the crime of aggression. And this crime wasn't defined back then. So it was defined in 2017. So now with the Ukrainian war, and Louis came, he asked me in October if I would film when he's going to Nuremberg to speak about the flaw, actually, in the court. He asked me to film, and I thought, wow, that's really incredible, because now, with the Ukrainian war, the world is suddenly interested, because it's so close, the war is so close to us, and the world was suddenly very interested in this institution. And this is why I think right now it's the optimal timing to tell the story, because still it's very complex.
Thanks. And Michele, the first time around, when you started working on this 10 years ago, I mean, what was it that drew you to this institution in the first place at that time? Because as Marcus just said, at that time it was quite new. People knew not so much about it. Why did you think at that time this is a worthy subject for a movie? And how was it to start working on that?
So for me, when I first looked into the International Criminal Court, I saw an institution that was representing people who had no one who was representing them. And when it was about cases like Congo, Lubanga, the Lubanga case that we also see in the movie, I could feel that these people had no representation, no legal representation. So for me, that was a very important thing where I thought this institution is so needed, and so many people need this institution to be successful. And when we started filming back in 2010 it was, 2010, 2011, not many people knew about it. And so for me, when I talked to my friends and people close to me, they had no idea what this International Criminal Court was actually doing. So, and when I started to tell them what I saw and what we filmed at the court, I felt there was so much interest in what it means for these people to be represented and to have some international institution standing up for the rights of them, that I thought that's really, really something I would like to make a film about and to bring to the bright audience.
Mr. Moreno Ocampo, this spring when the ICC gave out this arrest warrant to Vladimir Putin, I think a lot of people thought, wow, what's going on? Here's something happening that's really interesting in this context of the war, and now they heard something from an institution that not everyone was so aware of maybe all the time. But the warrant is, as Marcus Vetter just said, it's not about the aggression itself, but it's about his involvement in the abduction of Ukrainian children. Could you maybe explain to those in the room who are not so familiar with the scope and the limitations of the ICC, why this specific tiny thing, and why can't the ICC not just go for the aggression itself?
Well, Al Capone was prosecuted and convicted for tax evasion. Even Al Capone was a big killer in Chicago. It was difficult for them to prove. In the case of Putin, the big states impose on aggression crime an extra requirement. For war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide, it's enough that the territory of the crime was committed, the country is a member of the ICC. For aggression crime, in addition that Ukraine, in this case, accepted jurisdiction, it required that Russia accept jurisdiction. And of course, legally, Russia will not accept the jurisdiction. Therefore, aggression crime is in the paper, but will never be implemented. And we start with this discussion. And I was commenting, in the movie appeared Ben Ferenc, who was the prosecutor in Nuremberg, and he was fighting all his life for transform aggression crime into a crime. And this conversation was in Kampala in 2010 and did not achieve the result. And I remember meeting him in December, and he was so happy. I say, Ben, why are you so happy? Luis, they close the door, but we go through the window. Any leader invading a country, we cannot prosecute the leader for aggression crime, as today Putin, but we can prosecute him for war crimes. Any people, any country invading other country will commit war crimes and crimes against humanity. We prosecute for them. And interestingly, that's what the prosecutor did. He could not prosecute aggression crime, the most serious crime committed there, but he found a very interesting war crime, and he prosecuted Putin for that. Why is it important? First, Putin cannot be prosecuted in Germany or Ukraine because head of state have immunity before a national court, not before the ICC. And interestingly, this was presented by the Russians as a humanitarian assistance. They took the kids, moved to Russia, and they were thinking, oh, it's humanitarian. No, it's a war crime. And because Putin is involved, and the lady, the commissioner is involved, I think the prosecutor has enough evidence to prove that in a court tomorrow if he need. So because when you're a prosecutor, you need evidence. And yes, Russian troops bomb hospitals and theaters, but what the connection with this specific crime of Putin? In aggression crime was clear, Putin decided, but we cannot do that. But in this case, looks smaller, but it's very important because it's a war crime. Now people understand it's a war crime, and Putin is indicted. And now the effort he has to use this indictment to transform the conflict.
So would you say it's not even that big of a problem that the ICC can't prosecute the aggression itself if it has this way through the window? Is it the same?
It's a big problem. No, I think it's better, would be better to have aggression crime. It's not but, and that's why for me, Russia is invasion in Ukraine is affecting Ukraine, but it's also affecting global order. And this difficulty to prosecute aggression crime is exposed now. So that could be a good discussion after the Ukrainian conflict. People, states, including Europe, but in all the world, committed to the idea aggression crime could be prosecuted and leaders who can invade other countries should be prosecuted. That's something we should discuss if we want to survive, because it's about survival.
Ms. Frivet, you work as a barrister in The Hague. You deal with International Criminal Court in your daily, business, work life. How often do you have to use these kinds of through-the-window approaches in the cases you're dealing with? Is this a novelty situation that prosecution has to be that creative to have a small threat to work with, or is this something that you see regularly?
So I'm a barrister in London, and like many lawyers in their own countries, for criminal cases, the police and the local prosecutors like to mind, they have to mind, firstly, their own jurisdiction. So in Germany, for instance, even though you have the same laws that are, you have the same crimes, you have crimes against humanity, you have war crimes, the prosecutors will look just at what's happening in Germany, or they will require a very strong connection with Germany. So in some cases, they could say, okay, maybe there is a Venezuelan war criminal in Germany, but the victims are not here, there is no clear link with Germany, so they don't want to get into this business. For civil lawyers, which are basically lawyers that look for damages when they're tort, the same thing. When you're dealing with the strategic use of mass violence, you have so many victims. They're complicated cases. They're not, and very often, if you go after one war criminal, if you go after a militia leader, there's not much money in it. So it doesn't happen very often. So yes, you do need to go up through the window, and you do need to get creative in more than one ways in order to be able to get to these cases when you're not in an international institution. The cases happen, but you have to push the limits.
But if I may, the documentary show, yes, justice is an alternative to war, because we treat violence not as enemies to kill, as criminals with right to be investigated. But the prosecutor, different than a lawyer or an activist, has to present cases well proved. So it's not a window. You present the case and you have evidence. And so in this case, the prosecutor has a great evidence about the personal involvement of President Putin himself in this war crime, and that's perfect for him. And for an arrest warrant, you don't need, it's a war crime. The punishment is the same, so it's a great case.
Another way around is what or could be what the European Commission has proposed, and also Volodymyr Zelensky himself has proposed. They have said, why not have a special tribunal just for this?
What do you think about it?
Well, I would think right now the statutes are not fit to prosecute the aggression itself, right? So either you use another means to do that, or you change the rules for the court, right?
Yeah, that's the point. You delete 5 words in the Rome Statute, and the prosecutor ICC could do it. Inventing a special tribunal is just against Russia. So the global order will be Russia cannot invade countries. We, American, France, UK, no problem. We can do it. So that is the global order we want, or we want the global order with rule for everyone. That's the point. So the remaining task is to be sure the ICC jurisdiction includes aggression crime and can prosecute that, if you want to be serious about that. If not, we still have the possibility to use war crimes.
And would you be afraid that they would now use a special tribunal, that this is like sort of an example case, and the next time we are dealing with a similar situation, they would again opt more for a special tribunal?
No, they will never. This special tribunal will never be created.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the point. It's a diversion. Yeah. People feel, oh, we are doing something, we are doing nothing. The focus now is not to create any tribunal; is implement the arrest warrant against Putin. That's the focus.
Explain maybe quickly why the special tribunal will never come into place for the audience. Because
you already have an arrest warrant against Putin. Why do you need a tribunal who you have to be an agreement between the United States? Most of the global South countries will be against, because it's hypocrisy. We are doing a tribunal against Russia, not against Americans. Come on. And then you have to spend a budget of $100 million and create a position and create the judges. We don't need all that. It's obvious. So it's an idea. It's just good for 3 minutes on TV. It's not serious.
Maybe another question for Michele. Another country that has not agreed, to the statute is the United States of America, and they often, want to lead by example, or claim they want to lead by example. How has your view on this, developed during the work on this film that's been going on for 10 years? Are you watching that closely? Do you see anything moving for them, or is it just a fixed stance?
I think, as Mike Pompeo said, we have him in the movie, and he says that he sees the ICC as a very corrupt and broken institution. I think that shows pretty clearly what the US thinks about participating under the Rome Statute. So for me, I think that's just a big excuse for not being part of the Rome Statute. And I think they are afraid, because as soon as they would be part of it, some of their leaders would be prosecuted. So I think that's a very sad situation for the International Criminal Court. But at the same time, it also shows that the United States tries to stay ahead of these things and not try to be part of this community to prevent these crimes. So I think that's a very bad thing so.
You want to add something?
Yeah, I want to add, because there was a situation when Luis was coming to The Hague, and he was picked up by a taxi driver. And that taxi driver, he was picking up a lot of staff of the ICC, so he was pretty much aware, and he came from Pakistan. And he was asking the prosecutor, or actually he was saying that if the court has to be improved, if they have to be, if they should be more unbiased in a certain way, because he said exactly who would you if everybody would agree, all the nations, let's assume all the nations would come together and agree on the ICC, who would you then prosecute? And he mentioned, for example, Bush, because obviously the Iraq war could be seen as a war of aggression. I mean, if it was a war of aggression, if it was just with good intentions, we don't know. But so he was raising these questions, and I think a court is only as good as a global court as the world perceives that court as a just court. So that's why it's so important that everybody, also the mighty states, agree on the same legality and feel also accountable for it. And I think this is now, this taxi driver, in a certain way, he raised exactly that question. And I think that's what it's all about how such a global court is being perceived. Because otherwise, if nobody believes in such an institution, then probably such an institution could be senseless. And it's about getting rid of that flaw. And I think if we could rally for that, then I think much more countries would accept that court. And I have to add, it's the global South actually ratifying the court. The whole South America is behind the court. So it's them who trust in an institution which could be perceived as a Western puppet institution. And that's the big conflict.
Yes, please.
No, because are you from Munich?
Yeah, no, I'm from Aachen, actually.
And you're from Bavaria?
No.
No? What's your state?
North Rhine-Westphalia.
Okay, Westphalia. And are you German? And European?
Yes.
Oh, yes, but even 50 years ago, your grandmother would not say, I am a European. No, I am German, no? So we are understanding we are from our city, our state, our country, Europe, and now in some issues like climate change, global crimes, pandemics, we should understand we are the global, and therefore we need global institutions. That's a concept for me. That's a concept. Of course, biggest country like US don't want something bigger than them, but it's fine. The rest of the world, the smaller countries, yes, we want something helping us to survive. European Union, you build European Union. It took how many years?
Many years.
Yes, and a lot of political leadership. And that's what we are missing now, political leadership to keep building the idea there is a global confederation against massive atrocities. That is the ICC. The strength of the ICC is not the court, it's the commitment of state parties. That is the point.
So what are the chances? I mean, either include the aggression in the statute or get more countries to sign up to it, I mean, or both. Because right as of now, I think it's 123 nations of the world. So what do you think it's going to be, I mean, is it possible to get either more countries to join or all the countries to join or to change the statute? What do you think?
Well, you know how many countries were in the UN at the beginning? 60. 4 at the beginning and then 60. So it's a process. It's a process. How long? I don't know how long we go, but we need something for climate change. We need something. The problem is, I spent 6 years at Harvard. We are not studying how to expand the global community, how to manage the global community. We are not doing that. There are no global analysis, and that's, I think, the missing part. That's why the Marcus movie is to provoke a conversation. No?
What do you think, Joanna?
Yes, if I can add something. I'm not sure if the question is really, oh, what's possible? Should we have more? Should we change the rules? Is it possible to change the rules? Or can we have more countries? I don't think that's the question. I think the real question is that the US exists to protect its own citizens. and its own values when it wants outside of the country. The United Nations is a congregation of many states, so their agenda is conflicting with many, many, many states. And when they apply it, when they don't, they're not protecting people of my country. I'm from Mauritius, very small country, Indian Ocean in Africa. And the US doesn't protect my people. The United Nations doesn't exist to protect my people. It exists to protect my country, which is not the same thing as protecting my people. So when my people are at risk, because I am from a minority in my own country and there has been an ethnic conflict there, what exists for me? The only mechanism that exists, that is designed to do this, to protect people, is the International Criminal Court. So it may be the case that it has some flaws, and it has many flaws, but at the end of the day, for people of my country, I don't really have the choice. We have to figure out a way to make it work one way or another.
Yes,
and this is
when we
the
talk
South.
I'm sorry, yeah, it's very nice. But when we talk about flaws, okay, as you see, you can discuss cases, but war is a flaw itself. And in fact, we went to war in Afghanistan, and US lost, Taliban won. Went for wrong reason to Iraq war, Syria war, Libya war. So the alternative is not, or justice is war, and war is not working.
And from the discussions right now on the international level, do you think that the war in Ukraine, I mean, is this some sort of, putting up some momentum to get this discussion, to reactivate this discussion, to get on with this? What's your perception of this?
I think there's a renewed interest, but to be honest, we've been at war the whole time. Since World War II, it hasn't really stopped, right? Whether it's covert wars, regime change, whether you're talking actual terrorist attacks and suddenly, we need to go invade Iraq for what reason again? Was bin Laden from Iraq? I'm not really sure. But it hasn't really stopped at all. I think there is a momentum now, because now you have dead bodies on TV in Germany, and it's 6 hours in this direction. So yes, of course, now it's important. Now it has become a subject. And I don't mean to criticize the fact that it is a momentum, it is important, but also it's increasing. We have more refugees now than after the Second World War. It's something that actually keeps me awake at night, and I can't explain to you how it is a cycle of there's really no way out of this, is that we have now millions of children who are growing up as refugees, right? They're growing up in lands without roots. They're growing up unwanted. They're growing up with a fear of authority. What is going to happen in 20 years when these people are going to be grown-up participants in our society? This is something we have to fix, because, the long-term consequence of war is not just dead bodies now. It's destroying societies. It's not destroying societies just in the Middle East or whatever. These people are going to be our problem in the future,
You just said, in 20 years, what's going to be with them? I want to look into, 10 years from now, because you have started 10 years ago to talk about this movie and about the ICC. Imagine you would all meet again in 10 years. What would the story be about the ICC then?
I will be dead, probably. I don't know, it's difficult to predict, because if war is a mechanism to manage conflict, probably will not exist more. Albert Einstein say, I don't know how the Third World War will be fight, but the Fourth World War will be with rock and sticks. So one alternative, if we follow the path of war, imagine Russia using nuclear weapons. Imagine before the war, there were groups in Ukraine selling weapons around the world. Imagine now, they have the supermarket to sell. So the Libya conflict spread violence in the area, Syria conflict a lot. So if this is progressing, the future is complicated, no? That's why the best scenario would be like Argentina. Argentina is a mess of a country, And if the war is going well, it will be like Argentina, a mix of good things and bad things, crazy things, but some no political violence. That is what we need to do. But in addition, we need to do climate change. So that's the point. Like global issues we are not facing. And the problem is, it's unfair for normal people because scholars should develop new tools to manage global issues, and they are not. So I feel it's a mess, but we'll fix it because with Sao Paulo University, we are starting a new project there, innovation, so don't worry, it's coming. In the meantime, the movie is opening eyes, and you will write great pieces, explain the problems, and then that's what we can do. Each of us can do something in this area, and that's that we can do, that we should do.
What do you think?
I think if we want to look at the next 10 years, we need to look at the last 10 years. And unfortunately, since I started in this field, there's even more conflict now than when I arrived at the ICC.
No, and
But,
our time was good. Our time was supportive.
Yes, now it's...
It was the gold time.
Yeah, it was a golden time. Now it's actually, yeah, we've gone 10 years in the wrong direction. And the real question is, and I think we need to ask ourselves, no, another question, of course, but who wants war? You don't want war. I don't want war. People in Ukraine don't want war. So why do we have so many wars? Who are these people who want wars? You know, that's the question. And why do they want war? If we want to fix it in 10 years, why do they want war? And they want war because of money. So that's the very uncomfortable truth. In the next 10 years, are these people who have put us in this situation and have increased the number of wars, right, is that going to change, you think? How do we change that? How do we create either, firstly, a deterrent for it? Well, if we create a deterrent for it, we need to make war more costly for them. Somebody needs to compensate these victims. There needs to be a price for it, or somebody has to go to jail. But we need to start thinking either create incentives for peace negotiations, all that, or create deterrent for war. Otherwise, in the next 10 years, not looking very good. If we take the last 10 years as an indicator, not looking very good, no.
I'll open up the floor to your questions in a second, but maybe to wrap this up here amongst ourselves. In the movie, another main protagonist is Benjamin Ferenc, who passed away this spring, sadly. He was one of the prosecutors in the Nuremberg trials. And he says in the documentary, he says, and I quote him, "You cannot have peace without justice." And I want to put the question maybe to you, Max Vetter. Do you think this is the only way, or is there another way to peace through maybe admittance of things that one has done badly, and and forgiveness on the other side?
Oh, forgiveness. I believe in the concept of forgiveness because I made a film, Heart of Jenin, where a Palestinian father broke the vicious circle of violence when he donated his son's organs to Israeli children who was just shot down by the Israeli army. And that created so much positive things, actually. I mean, what he did with that message was incredible, just incredible for everybody, because we are full of hope. We need hope. In hopeless time, we need hope. So I think the concept of forgiveness, of course, I think that's a valuable, a very important concept. I'm wondering as well why especially now when it seems that we are trying to be in favor for the war because we want to be in solidarity with the country, we want to help that country. And we had that so often. I can totally understand it. There is a dictator we want to help. There is Iraq, we don't agree with that, we want to help. But it's so complex and often, and it's just raising the question, what do we want as a global society? Is war, like Obama said, for example, is war in order to help? If there's a humanitarian crisis, is it the right thing? Or do we create more deaths? Is there another way? And I think justice is a very good way. And when you talk about Ben Ferenc, he was working all his life for that very idea to say that war itself is the biggest war crime, because there is no war without atrocities. So we have to stop that concept and replace it with the concept of justice. And this film wants just to re-raise that question again, that we are not on a one-way street right now, that we just think, yeah, now we have to finish that thing, because nobody knows where will it lead to. And I think that's the only thing what this film wants, open the discussion again. And there is a global court. It is with flaws. Maybe we can go into the legacy of Ben Ferenc and continue improving the Rome Statute. I think this is what we wanted to do with that film, just to think again, rethink what we are thinking.
Well, thank you. Let's see if there are questions from the audience. If you want, just raise your hand. I think we do have a microphone that could be passed to you. If you want to, if you still want to think about, yes, there's a question there in the back. Please state your name briefly and say who you are addressing the question to, please.
From Munich. I have two questions. As far as I know, the item of aggression was put into the Nuremberg trials on request of the Soviet Union. Like the other items, crimes against humanity and genocide, did this not find any resonance in international law? This is my first question. And I have a second one in German. Verbrechen sind immer, richten sich immer gegen Menschlichkeit. Die Verbrechen, die in Nürnberg und später dann so genannt wurden, Crimes against Humanity, sind eigentlich Verbrechen, die größer waren als das juristische System, was es damals gab. Warum wird in Deutschland immer wieder von Verbrechen gegen die Menschlichkeit gesprochen, statt Verbrechen gegen die Menschheit? Das sind Menschheitsverbrechen und keine Menschlichkeitsverbrechen, meines Erachtens.
Thank you. So the first question was about the Nuremberg aggression. Can you say something?
At Nuremberg, the most important crime was aggression crime. Crimes against peace was called, and was basically supported by Robert Jackson, the American prosecutor. There were also charges for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And it's very relevant because when in 1998, delegates from 160 countries met to discuss the Rome Statute that created the ICC, the consensus was we need to base this court on Nuremberg. So the three crimes from Nuremberg were included in the statute: aggression crime, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And then the crime of genocide, who was established in 1948, was added. And these are the four crimes that the ICC has. The issue is, for aggression crime, there was a delay on defining, and then there was imposing new conditions to make more difficult to investigate the aggression crime. That's the answer. But yes, aggression crime was the most important crime at Nuremberg. I have no idea what he said.
The second question was in German, and it was about a difference in language, because we have, in English, we have crimes against humanity, but in German there are two ways to basically translate, and one is crimes against humanity, and the other one is a crime against being human, maybe, yes, and why it was called one and not the other but I don't have an answer to that. I don't know if you have ever stumbled upon it in...
Michele.
No, actually, I know something about this. I lied, sorry. I know something about this. So what I know is that I know that Germany has domesticated the Rome Statute. So they have imported the same definition. I'm not sure about the terminology or how they translate it, but in the core substantive elements of the crime, they reflect the offense under the Rome Statute. So you need to, somebody needs to do the same things, crimes against people, the same definition for it to qualify in the German law. So that's what I know.
Well, thanks. I mean, that's
Please go
better
ahead,
than
Mike.
all we had. Great. Are there more questions? Where? I don't. Yes, in the front. Microphone is coming your direction. Just give it a second.
In a world full of crimes, to impose criminal law is unavoidably selective. How we should argue that unavoidable selectivity is not, in this case, is not hypocrisy.
Okay. When the first time I met Benjamin Fering was in 1987 in New York. And in those days, I was an Argentinian prosecutor, and my problem was I have 1,500 suspects, and I cannot prosecute 1,500 people. So I was looking for a criterion to select, because all of them were deserved to be investigated and prosecuted. And I met Ferenc and said, Mr. Ferenc, explain to me how you did at Nuremberg. Do you have evidence against many people? Wow, German people are very well organized, they keep documents, so I have evidence against thousands of people. And what you did? Well, I prosecuted 22. And I was thinking, okay, here is my criterion. Benjamin Fering will explain to me how to move from 1,000 to 22. And I asked him, okay, why did you prosecute just 22? Well, at Nuremberg, there were 22 chairs. So I prosecute 22. That's it. So there is no criterion. That's why when I was the chief prosecutor, I adopted as a policy rule that we prosecute those most responsible. So we prosecute, you have an army, okay, we try to identify the most important person there, and we prosecute them. And Karim Khan did that with Putin in Russia case. So that's the concept. The court, because it's an exceptional court, can do few cases and focus on the most responsible, and then expecting that in the future, national system will deal with the rest.
But also, in Kenya, you did both sides.
Yeah. In each country, we deal with when there are different groups committing crimes, we investigate different groups. That's normal. But it's a prosecution criteria, so you prosecute.
Prosecutor's discretion.
Also, but basically, we try to prosecute the most responsible, whoever are they. If you have no question, for me, I'm very glad to be in Germany, understanding what German people think about this movie. So those of you who saw the movie, I did a question before, but now they were thinking more. So if some of you can tell me what you think as German citizen, what you think about this movie, trying to present the idea, Germany has to keep the idea, war is not a policy, justice is a policy. Okay, that's my feeling. If some of you can explain to me what you think about the movie, it will be great.
So a question to the audience.
Yes.
Very good. There's a volunteer to answer first, but maybe there will be more. There's another one in the back.
People, okay.
My name is Peter Walny. I'm living in Munich, and my question is, isn't it, if we reflect that the interest to this court grows only with this conflict in Ukraine and not before in Syria or in Yemen or wherever, isn't it a bad sign that it's only in the interest of us because it's closer to West?
No, thank you for the question because it's very interesting. Syria case and Yemen case cannot be presented because neither Syria nor Yemen are state parties of the ICC or accepted jurisdiction. Ukraine accepted the jurisdiction. That's why the ICC is in Ukraine and not in Yemen and Syria. But I think your question is very good to present the position. In Syria, there is no justice, just war. And how it's working? It's pretty bad. Half of the country escaped. In Syria, half of the country is displaced. And I don't know the number of people killed, but I think it's more than 400,000 people. So that is war. You want to compare justice and war? Syria is a good example. Syria, there is no justice, just war and disaster. And ICC cannot intervene because Syria is not a state party, and Security Council does not like to include justice in Syria because Russia and US are involved.
So there was another hand in the back, maybe someone who can reply to the question.
I like that.
Hi, my name is Anastasia Bräuniger. I'm a German-Russian actress and director. And first of all, thank you for the movie. It was really impressive how you managed to make this topic or these questions raised really accessible and emotional at the same time, and it really informed me also. And I guess it made me also rethink what I think as a supporter of the Waffenlieferung, of the
weapons delivery. Yeah.
It made me question again if this is an adequate response, and if not, how can we respond? And it also made me question the institutions we tried to create. I think, Joanna, you said you believe in these institutions, and my last project was about the EU asylum policies, which are now evaporating more and more or turning into something quite questionable, and I'm really questioning if these institutions are something we should believe in, continue to work on, or I don't know. Yeah, lots of questions made me rethink what I think. Thank you.
Anastasia, I think if you had told me 20 years ago that I would be a believer in institutions and defending institutions, I would say no way in hell. Because I come from Mauritius, and when I was 13, there was an ethnic conflict in my country. And the way I found out is because it was the middle of school term, and my mother didn't send me to school. And I asked her, what's going on? Because on national TV, there was nothing, because it was state-owned. It was as if everything was fine. And when my mother finally told me, what she said was, they're burning the houses of minorities. And I'm from a minority. I thought, oh, bad news. And I said, why don't they call the police? And she said, it's because the police are the ones doing it. And that just, you imagine a 13-year-old, you think that the police is there to protect you, but what, maybe they're not? It just blows your mind. And I grew up with this very profound fear of authority and distrust of authority and institutions. Because pretty much the shepherd is the butcher, you know, and you're like, there's no one to protect you. So when I eventually joined the ICC, the reason why I joined the ICC is because I was there working as a lawyer when I first finished law school, and I was working in police brutality cases. So the police was beating up people to get confessions, and year after year we were sending the cases to court, to the National Human Rights Commission. Nothing was happening. But when you're a country where you have no plan B, you use the institutions and not working, what are you supposed to do? You know, you're a minority, you're in this country, you're too poor, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. What do? You don't have the choice. And I saw on TV, I saw him, announcing the issuance of a warrant of arrest against the president of Sudan. And I thought, my God, that's exactly what I want to be doing. Because the real problem is not that the institutions are failing. The real problem is how it's being used. If I give you a bread knife, you can cut a bread with it, or you can murder somebody with it. It's what you're doing with it that matters. And it's simply that the same institution that is structured and works in Germany and is not killing people, in my country, it's doing exactly the opposite. And in many other countries, it's doing the opposite. So it's not the fact that the institutions are tainted by the people in it. Institutions are legal fictions. They don't exist. It's not a thing that exists. It's a building that could be used for a museum or for a Ministry of Education. They're buildings. These are people who today you can be a filmmaker, tomorrow you're a police officer. They're people. So they need, just like these institutions exist, there are mechanisms to make them work. And that's what we need to work on, because there is no real alternative. In the current order that we have, and granted, for thousands of years, humanity did not have institutions as we know it, and arguably we made it, we survived. But now, on the scale where we are and the way we're living, we have institutions to regulate and all that, and it's fine. But this distrust in institutions is something of very much of our generation. And because, a big part of the problem is because we're asking institutions to do things that they are not made to do. So often I hear, oh, the UN is terrible, it's not saving people, it's addressing conflict, it's not protecting people. It was not made to protect people in the first place, so of course it cannot do that. It's this thing of, if you tell me that, no, a blow dryer and a vacuum cleaner, they're more or less the same thing, but you can't use a vacuum cleaner to blow dry your hair.
Okay.
You know, but ICC, but the ICC is made to do this. So I would say that in terms of institutions, you also need to be able to distinguish what it's designed to do, right? And the ICC is designed to do that, is designed to protect people.
Yeah.
So that's the important part. Please have faith in institutions.
No. She could not.
She needs to have faith in institutions.
She's a filmmaker. No, my comment, can I make a comment? My comment, look, one of the reasons for me fascinating to be here is because it's difficult for filmmakers to present institutions and something attractive. And that is for me the challenge, and that Marco is doing a great job in his film. But you are a filmmaker too. Please explain to me how to do that. Because look, in this country, you have SS, and it was a bad institution. And German people were doing an awful thing because SS, because institution. But you have the filmmaking, the FILMFEST of Munich, which is beautiful, and then we are doing good things because the institution is different. So institutions are procedures, and they are like invisible, but they're a matter of life or death. And it's difficult to present emotionally. Let me give an example. In my country, in Argentina, I have suffered the same. People, public officers committing crimes. But in democracy, we prosecute them. So I prosecute a colonel involved in a military rebellion. And we were charging him to violating the Constitution. And I love it because at the end of the movie, at the end of the trial, the man say, I have to explain to you, judges, what I did. Because I'm not ready to offer my life for my land and for my people. But do not ask me to offer my life for the Constitution. It's ridiculous. The Constitution is a system of procedures that could change tomorrow. So how can I offer my life for a procedural system that tomorrow could be changed by the politicians? It's crazy. And he ended. Offering my life for the Constitution is like offering my life for the metrical decimal system. I love it. I love it, the conclusion. The guy is so rational. But it's great. So you're a filmmaker. He's a filmmaker. He did a very good job presenting these procedures who are boring, connected with the killings and the war and the conflict. And that, I think, what we need. We need to integrate the concept. Filmmakers believe everything about gender or race. No. See Homeland. Homeland season 4. The head of intelligence in Pakistan, a woman. The head of CIA in Pakistan, a woman. Both killers, both awful killers. Not because they're women, because they are head of intelligence. So the job, the institutional job, is to kill, including kill. So that is for me what we need from artists. Help us, or help people to understand the emotional connection or the consequence for our life of institution, because that is a matter of life or death.
That's true. I used to be a correspondent in Brussels, so I was covering the European Union, so I have a thing or two to say about that, but it would be, it's hard to tell without being boring as well, because of institutions. Yes. There are more questions. I think we have a little bit more time left, not too much, but we can take these questions. An hour, we said an hour.
My name is Bernd Schließmann, also living here in Munich. Congratulations for this brilliant film. We appreciate the work of the lawyers as well of the filmmakers and to put any effort into this. As I also visited as a tourist the last 5 years the ICC, because I spent a lot of time in The Hague and Rotterdam, and also witnesses the courtroom there and what is going on there. Last year there was a class from Germany with their teacher, and so just what I wish that this film will make its way to the schools, to education, because as you summarized, it's really hard to explain such a very complex institution to the public. And this film, I think it's really brilliant and exceptional to do this. Thank you much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I saw a lot of heads nodding as well, so several people, yes. And there's another question right next.
In Den Haag is not only the ICC, there's also the Lebanon trial. What is necessary to open a trial like the Lebanon trial?
Well, Lebanon, I think it's an institution, it's a classic institution created just for political reason.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's a pure political institution with no real connection with the necessity, and that's why there's not a good investigation. There was a German investigator at the beginning, was fired, then there was no real good evidence, there's no people arrested. It's complicated. But it's an institution who was invented for political reason.
And the impact, when you look at the millions that was pumped in, lawyers standing huge files, cases that last years and years and years, even decisions, convictions, and then what does it really change in Lebanon? You know, it's just the constant pumping of newspapers and nothing else. Politically, it hasn't changed. You know, it hasn't, zero impact.
Yeah. Special courts are normally, in my country and in many countries, are not good ideas. We need normal courts. And the ICC we have to be proud and with hopes, because we have a global court now. We had no global court 50 years ago. Now we have a global court. We need to strengthen, to keep supporting. And it's funny, I feel ICC like a bastard son that no one really cared, but the bastards keep walking. And now indicted President Putin. So showing is useful.
I think we should not underestimate the importance of consistency in the application of the rules. So if you have a referee in the middle of a football match and he's only always pointing to one team and their faults, he's not really a referee, is he? I don't know what he is, but he's not a referee.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I'm so nervous. Hi everybody, my name is Pedro and I'm from Kiev. And thank you so much for FILMFEST, for your movie, because it's my first time for 2 years. Yeah, I want to thank you. So I have a question for you, Mr. Lewis. I prepared, yeah. So tell me please, how do you think, how it's possible for Putin to be in European court, and when? when the bomb and rock and bullet run out, or maybe he will be turned in by the police, or maybe more better create in Ukrainian. If you know, when finished Second World War, yeah, Israeli people created special special service like a Masada. So maybe we need to create like a Masada in Ukraine and catch Putin, yeah, like a so.
Well, the situation of Putin now is a suspect to be a criminal. But when you saw the movies when people robbing a bank has hostage, then the police is not going there to arrest them, shooting them. The police trying to negotiate. And the problem is Putin has Ukraine, half of the Ukrainian population as a hostage. That's why there should be some kind of negotiation to finish the problem. But now it's clear he committed war crimes. And that's something to be managed. If the states agree to have an agreement and Ukraine agree, the Security Council can stop the investigation against Putin. But Putin is has hostage half of the population in Ukraine. That's why dealing with him is not just going to arrest him. It's more complicated. But we have now an arrest warrant saying he's a criminal, or he's a suspect of a criminal. That is something new because head of states could not be fugitives. It's complicated for him to be a fugitive and head of state. So it's not immediately, as you say, normally in a national system, but it's something huge that is happening and will have consequences.
Thank you so much. As I don't see any more hands raised right now, I will wrap this up because we're a little over our time already. So thank you, the audience, for being here, for taking the time to go see the premiere, to stay for this Q&A, talked with us about the film. For you, for the filmmakers, congratulations to the movie and the premiere today. And both of you, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us on this very timely topic. Thank you so much.